God will put you in a class all by yourself. The problem with you is you've been praying to fit in. You ought to be praying to stand out. You've been praying to be accepted. You ought to be praying to be rejected, because the stone that the builders reject. Whenever you're rejected, let me talk to some rejected people. Whenever you're rejected, it's a sign you've been selected. Whenever they shut doors on you, it's a sign God is getting ready to open up a door for you. Whenever men turn up their nose and revile you, it's a sign that you're accepted in the beloved. When they cast you out, God will take you in. David said, when my mother and father forsake me, the Lord will take me up. There's something about standing out, not fitting in. Not being one with the pack, not being one with the herd, not hanging out with the fellas, not being one of the boys. You ought to be willing to stand out sometime. The problem today is everybody wants to fit in. See me, like me, follow me, befriend me, me. No, stand out. God is putting you in a situation where you're going to stand out. He shut down the country. He shut down the world so that you could get used to standing out, being by yourself, being in isolation, thinking your own thoughts, not needing everybody's validation to know who you are, know what you got. Get your vision together, get your plan straight. God's given you some time off for you to get your strategy together, because out of the mind of Solomon comes the temple of Solomon. You can't build it if you can't think it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If you can get it in your head, you can get it in your life. Somebody asked me, what is success? I said, success is not a dollar amount. It's not a house on top of the hill. It's not a Rolls Royce or a Bentley car. Success is when you can get your vision out of your head and in front of your face. When you can see the thing materialize. And brick by brick, block by block, masonry by masonry, the walls of Solomon's temple kept going up higher and higher and higher. And all the people were amazed because Solomon was their king. We need great leaders. Great people need great leaders. There's nothing worse than being a great man stuck behind a small one. Than being a good man stuck behind a bad one. Than being an anointed person following somebody that don't have no power. You got to have a leader that's worthy of your allegiance. That thinks big enough, that thinks strong enough, that thinks high enough, that has the depth of glory and weight and anointing that when he comes in the room, it's not hard to respect success. Solomon built the temple, and the walls went up, and the steeples were built, and it was constructed, and it was absolutely amazing. But in my text, it is not the opulence of the building. It is not the architectural design of the temple. It is not the gold materials that are used in the building. It is not the granite floors nor the marble columns that causes them to be in awe. No, all of that was wonderful until God's glory sat down on the building. And when God's glory hit man's work, all of a sudden, all they could see was the glory of God. When God sat down on their efforts, that's what I want God to do. I want him to anoint what I'm working on. I want him to anoint what I'm doing. I want him to sit down on what I'm trying to build. I don't want to build it if he's not going to sit down on it. When God's glory fell down on the temple, all religious order stopped. The priests stopped doing what they were doing. All the Levites were standing there in awe. They were ready to play the instruments that David had created. David was so creative, not only did he play instruments, he made instruments. And the instruments had now outlived him. And now we're seeing the second generation of Levites that are continuing the legacy of the music of David, who has gone on, and yet his songs are still filling the air. When the glory of the Lord fell, it fell on them because they were praising God and they were worshiping God. It didn't fall on them because they had gold. It didn't fall on them because they had columns. It didn't fall on them because they had granite. It fell because they had praise. And when the praises went up, the glory came down. And the glory came down so strong that the priests had to be still and the Levites had to stop because God had taken over the room. His glory had filled up the temple. It had filled every room, every cul-de-sac, every avenue, every closet, every corner was filled with His glory. I pray that right now the glory of God would get in your house. I pray it would get in your living room. I pray it would get in your dining room. I pray it would stand up in your kitchen. I pray it would overflow into your bedroom and get into all of your closets. I pray that the glory would sit on your house so strong that COVID couldn't get near your house because the house was filled. Yes, yeah.